Johnny Podrasky is the, oh shoot, I am so sorry. There we go. Notes came up. All right, Johnny Podrasky is a program manager at Google Cloud. In 2014, he was selected as one of 5 team members, including our own Laura Elton, to go for the Rotary District 6600's Group Study Exchange program to District 9820 near Melbourne, Australia. That's also the district that Dee is physically a part of. She served as Laura's host for one of the weeks, so it's a really fun connection with the club. Anyway, for Johnny's GSE program, he credits that as making a huge impact on his life. The relationships, the memories continue impacting him to this day. He's here tonight to share some of his experiences in the GSE program and how they led him to a new way of thinking about growth and success. Take it away, Johnny. Oh, also as a quick reminder, I think everybody is muted, but so just keep that up. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks so much, Emily, and hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. I think I've made a few appearances here and there. Really appreciate you all coming out, and I appreciate you inviting me to this meeting. It's really exciting to be able to give back to Rotary after I've gotten so much from it over the years, and that's a little bit what I'm going to talk about tonight. So today I'm going to share something that I learned as a direct result of my involvement with Rotary. So I'm going to share my screen here. So there is a way of thinking called a mental model, and it's a way that you can view the world. It's a way that you can interpret things that come into your understanding of the world. And I'd like to talk a little bit tonight about thinking impact first, which is a mental model that is all about growth and success that I learned that the Rotary GSE program made a huge impact on me and ended up taking me to this conclusion. So really quick before I get started, I just want to dedicate this presentation to the late George Casteris, a longtime Rotarian of the District 6600 Elyria Sunrise Rotary Club, and of course his wife, Jan Casteris. George passed away unexpectedly earlier this year, and I want to dedicate this presentation to him because he was instrumental in both myself and Emily being Rotary GSE members. He strongly encouraged us to apply for the program, helped address a lot of our fears and concerns, and he even coached us through the interviews and did some mock interviews to prepare us for the international travel. So ultimately, George and Jan are the reason I'm here with you today, and their efforts had a direct impact on both mine and Emily's lives, and for that, we are forever grateful. So I have a quick question for you all before we get started. Take a moment to consider, how has Rotary had an impact on you? And I mean you personally. How has being a member of Rotary or being involved with Rotary changed your life for the better? I can definitely feel a lot of positive vibes coming through here. Each of us have had our own different experiences and how Rotary has made our lives better. That's really one of the things that I love the most about Rotary, hearing the impact that it has on people and the stories that it creates for them. So the experience of the Group Study Exchange program actually changed my perspective on the world. That's how Rotary impacted me. Helping me to overcome my self-limitations, expanding my understanding of what it means to make an impact on others. And that's the kind of power that programs within Rotary can have. So today I'm going to share a little bit about the impact that GSE had on me, which ultimately led to me being hired by Google. And I'm going to share a little bit about what Google taught about, or what Google teaches about thinking about impact, and then how we collectively can think and rethink about the impact that we have on others. So let's start with a quick overview of the GSE program and what we, Laura and I, and our teammates experienced on this journey. So the GSE program is a really unique vocational and cultural exchange opportunity. It targets business people, young professionals between the ages of 25 and 40 who are in the early stages of their career. Rotary as a whole provides travel grants for the teams to exchange visits in paired areas of different countries. In my case, we went to Australia. In Emily's case, she went to Scotland, and every district's program handshakes and swaps team members. So the Australia district also sent 5 people to us, as well as Scotland sending 5 people to District 6600 as well. As I mentioned, this is our team. You'll know 2 familiar faces, myself and Laura there. It's also Christine Nags, Jennifer Bowman, and our team lead on the right there, Jan Knapp. Jan was part of the Bowling Green Rotary Club, and I think she still is. We traveled for 4 weeks in March 2014, and we really intimately experienced Australia District 9820's Rotary culture and institutions. We got to see how our own individual vocations are practiced abroad, and we developed a lot of personal and even professional relationships and exchanged new ideas. For myself, I visited some engineering firms, and I visited some really cool IT firms. And I think Laura, as a dental hygienist at the time, visited a lot of new dental hygienists in Australia and learned a lot about the profession there. So just as an example of the kinds of things that we experience. Rotarians in the district provided meals, lodging, and group travel within that district. They also organized social receptions and even vocational visits. So just to zoom in on the district here so you can get a little bit better idea of where we were. During our tour, we participated in 5 full days of vocational visits, so 8-hour days working at other people's companies. We did about 15 or so club presentations, and those gold stars that you see are all the various places that we visited, not all of them, but some of them. We had more than 15 formal and social events. So after a club meeting, we might hang out for a while and eat dinner with everyone, or there would be social or club events. We spent 3 days at the Rotary District Conference. We would take about 3 or 4 hours per day of cultural and site tours, and sometimes we would have free time with our host families. It sounds like a lot of work, and that's because it was. The group study exchange is not a vacation. It's a full-time social experience. It was really intimidating. Every week you would have a new host family, so you're constantly moving around and you're constantly packing up your belongings and going somewhere else. Every day's events brings you into contact with a brand new set of Rotarians. I want to say we met at least 150, if not more, personally during the course of our trip. And since every club is always looking forward to meeting you, you have to bring your full energy every time so that you make sure you're giving them the best experience, because they've been waiting and waiting and waiting for you to arrive, and they want to show you everything that they want to show you. So you have to be on like all the time in order to give them the energy that they're giving you. And it's really challenging, especially when you have to wake up really early after staying up late at a social event the previous night. There were a couple times where I only got like 6 hours of sleep and I had to go a full day after that. So even though it sounds like craziness, it definitely was worth it. But you know, I got to be honest, in the time leading up to our departure, I was really full of uncertainty. I didn't tell anyone this. This is actually the first time I'm saying this, but I actually almost called it quits out of fear. I didn't really know if I was going to be able to handle this. It sounded like so much. There were so many scary questions that ran through my mind leading up to our travel. For one thing, I had never been away from home for that long. International travel was still fairly new to me. Could I survive going to a new country for an entire month? Would I be able to handle that grueling schedule? One of the things that was forefront on my mind is, don't all the animals in Australia want to kill you? Aren't there like huge scary spiders and everything is really dangerous there? Fun fact, if you can see in the top left-hand corner up here, let's get my mouse, there we go. This little dude right here is called a huntsman spider. This right here is an American quarter, so that gives you kind of the size of that guy. I found him in my bedroom when I woke up one morning, hanging out on the wall, just looking around for some bugs. So we caught him and gently transferred him outside. But that was an interesting surprise. So definitely the spiders were a major concern. Among my other concerns and my uncertainties, you know, how can I convince my employer to give me a month off? You know, these projects that I'm working on. How do I make sure that they're taken care of? What if something goes wrong while we're there? At the time, Russia was invading Crimea, if you remember back in those days. And we were like, oh my gosh, is this gonna start World War III? We don't know what's gonna happen. It was very intimidating to travel internationally. What if I don't get along with our teammates? Fortunately, we all got along. all of these questions were very real and very valid fears, especially the spiders. So each of us had our own doubts and our own challenges. But in the end, the experience just absolutely made it worth it. Our team decided to power through it, and we made it through it. And the impact that it had on us, we're going to carry those experiences and those relationships through the rest of our lives. In hindsight, I can confidently say that participating in Rotary GSE ended up being one of the greatest challenges and the greatest wins of my entire life. Experiencing a new country, experiencing the sights, the sounds, the smells, the birds are different. It's so weird. Everything is so different, and yet it's so much the same because you're still visiting Rotarians, and the Rotary culture extends globally. And it's so awesome to see in the eClub here that is the case, where we're all, you're all Rotarians, and you can all experience this collectively together. And that's really what we experienced when we went to Australia. GSE taught me so many things. It taught me the importance of a strong team and a strong community and how to operate within one. It taught me how to create enduring international relationships. That's one of the reasons I'm so proud of Emily for working with this club. It's such a cool opportunity for everyone to have these international relationships. It created a broader perspective on my career, visiting all the vocational areas, on my business, and just life in general. And it also expanded my global and my cultural awareness. And again, that's really what this eClub's all about. But I think most importantly, GSE taught me how like-minded people, Rotarians, can work together to have a huge impact on someone's life. The people listed here are my District 9820 host families. And just through the simple act of allowing me into their homes for 1 week, they created this momentum that I still carry today, over 6 years later. And that impact just keeps on growing. George's request of me applying to this and encouraging me to apply to this got me into the program. And this led me to encouraging my then girlfriend and now fiance, Emily, to also apply 2 years later for the Scotland team. And she was able to do that. It led to her joining the 6600 eClub. Now she's the president of the eClub. Now I'm here today giving back to the organization that's given me so much. All of this is a domino effect from George and Jan's initial involvement and their encouragement all the way to today. And ultimately, the intent of Rotary and the intent of Group Study Exchange is to broaden our international understanding, our international goodwill and peace. And the GSE program, for me, over-delivered on all of those. I think about it so much, and I still find more to learn every time I revisit it. I'm still growing and still succeeding because of the impact that Rotary had on me. And the experiences and the newfound understanding of the world that I got from that directly prepared me for what happened 5 years later when I got this phone call. So the day, picture this, is April 4th, 2019. Over the last 4 months, I had gone through Google's grueling interview process. I passed a phone screening. I studied for almost 3 months preparing for the on-site interviews. I flew out to California. I went through a gauntlet of 6 extremely challenging hour-long interviews that if I hadn't been properly prepared, I never would have gotten through them. So April 4th, 2019, I'm expecting a call from a recruiter to find out whether I made it in, either an offer saying, please come join us, or a rejection, maybe next time. This is an actual screenshot of that call, by the way. When he called, I took a screenshot of it so I would have that forever, because that's a call that you don't always get. So spoiler alert, I made it in. It's been a whirlwind ever since. We had to pack up our entire lives. We had to move across the country, leave all of our friends, all of our family behind. I had lived in Cleveland for my entire life. I'd never, aside from the month I spent in Australia, lived outside of Cleveland for more than a month. It was really scary. But looking back, I can say that with confidence that we were able to do this because we were prepared and because of what we experienced in Rotary GSE. It directly prepared me for getting this job. Everything we learned on that trip, the travel, the resilience, the teamwork, the relationships, the career expanding awareness, it had an impact on me and Emily, and it impacted my belief in myself for being able to move across the country and work with a global multicultural company like Google. So let's fast forward really quick to today. I've been at Google for just over a year. Sometimes it feels like I've learned 5 years worth of stuff in the last year. It's amazing the pace at which they work. As I'm sure you've heard, Google as an organization thinks a lot differently from other companies, especially when it comes to its employees. It's hard to get into the company, but what happens after you join? Once you get in, how can you grow and be successful when you find yourself surrounded by some of the smartest technology experts in the world? It's really intimidating. I really wanted to understand how to succeed here. And so over the last year, I've done a lot of research internally, and actually Google has its own internal version of Google that's only accessible to employees it's a search engine for all the stuff inside Google. It's really cool. And I wanted to understand how Google works, how they evaluate their employees' growth, how they consider you to be successful. And the results of my research were actually really, really surprising. It turns out Google measures its employees' growth and success based on the impact that they have on those around them and the scope of the challenges that they solve. So impact can be thought of as a measure of the tangible and intangible effects of one's actions or influence on another. So thinking about the GSE and the tangible and even the intangible effects that all of those Rotarians had on myself and on Laura and our team, it just keeps on growing. So is that a way to measure success? Is that a way that we can measure our growth? Let's take a look at how Google thinks about this. So it starts at the project level. This might be when an intern comes in at Google. Entry level means you're expected to make a strong impact on the specific projects that you're assigned to. The challenges and the problems that you're solving are localized to that single project. Outside of that, you have to think about your team and your teammates. To grow and to be more successful and to move up the ladder, as it were, you have to broaden your scope. Intra-team means you're actively solving problems for your teammates, maybe making things faster or better. For me, on my team, it might be mentoring my teammates through a challenging problem or improving our documentation or our tooling. Once you start getting a sense for your team, you can start thinking about other teams, shifting your focus to solidify the processes and interactions between teams. At most companies, if you're consistently doing a great job in your role, you'll get promoted, over time. Now, once you get promoted, you have a whole new set of responsibilities and expectations to learn from. Some of you may have heard of the Peter Principle. The Peter Principle says that you're promoted to your highest level of incompetence, which means you are promoted, you're doing great, and then suddenly you can't do a good job at this, and so you're not promoted anymore. Google does things a little differently, and this is what really surprised me. If you want to succeed, if you want to get promoted at Google, you have to clearly demonstrate to others that you're already working at the next level of impact. You have to act as if you're already in that role, and you have to already be working in that scope. And this mental model, this thought process really changed how I look at my day-to-day efforts, my projects, and even my life. To grow at Google, you have to demonstrate that you're already solving problems and impacting others at that next level of scope. If we shrink this out and look a bit more broadly, not only is there the team, but there's the organization or the division that you might be in, maybe even company-wide. Why not industry-wide? The higher up you are in any organization, Rotary included, the greater your sphere of influence, the more teams, peoples, businesses are impacted by your decisions and your solutions. So this sort of thinking is common for large corporations and even Rotary. But I think what I really want to key in on here is what sets Google apart is that in order to even be considered ready for that, you already have to be acting that way. And so this led me to understand that if I want to grow and I want to be successful, I have to find and work on challenges and problems that are bigger in scope than my current set of responsibilities. In other words, to grow and to increase your impact, you have to constantly and consciously increase the scope of the problems that you're solving. Or put another way, you need impact first thinking. So impact first thinking is a mental model. It's a perspective or a way of thinking to view the world. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey and his world-renowned book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, highly recommend you read that. This was a foundational game changer for my entire life. It's very similar to his concept of begin with the end in mind. When you start out on anything, you should begin with the end in mind. When you start out with anything, you should think about the impact that you're going to have as a result of your actions. And so the lesson here is that we need to choose a level of scope that aligns with who we are, that aligns with what we want and what resources we have to work with. Ultimately, one that aligns with the impact that we as individuals want to have on the world around us. So here's a quick example of what this might look like within Rotary. It starts out with yourself. It starts with just showing up to the meetings, understanding what you want out of Rotary and what being a Rotarian really means to you. It also encompasses the role that you want to play in understanding yourself. Rotary gives you a great opportunity to grow or polish many skills: leadership, coordination, relationship building. All of these can actively be cultivated as a Rotarian. Once you get a sense for what you want, you can start increasing your scope to the club level, building deeper relationships with your club members, even outside your regular meetings. Give them an email, give them a call, have a quick social chat, maybe some coffee. Actively participating, contributing in your meetings, contributing to the club activities and programs. Maybe you have a special skill that could benefit the club, like website building, and you could help them build their website. Of course, contributing monetarily to club efforts and helping the club realize its goals and the programs that they're putting in place. And this leads directly to the families and the individuals that you impact. Rotary, at a minimum, asks that its members contribute to its programs. That way, you can participate with a broader scope than just within your club and what we'd be able to do individually. As an example, your Guatemala literacy program, it really deeply touches the lives of the individuals and the families that are participating in it. So sponsoring and your contribution, even if it's just money or your time, really makes a difference to those involved, and that's the impact that you have on them. As your scope grows, you can also think about creating an impact on communities, maybe even countries or regions, and ultimately the entire world. And just quick note, this is the same diagram that I use to demonstrate growth and success at Google. If impact first thinking is what Google, one of the most successful companies in the world, asks of its employees, why shouldn't that be true for yourself? Why shouldn't that be true for your club or for Rotary International as a whole? So let's take a look at how we can apply impact first thinking right here and right now. So first thing we need to do is choose a scope. How do you choose a scope? If you remember this diagram, which I've got hanging out over here, it starts with yourself, and that's the minimum that you can do. But if you're going through that process and you're not sure what to do, you might want to start thinking about your strengths. What are you the best at? What skills do you have that you can contribute to for each level? How does that scale with the scope? What are your interests? What do you enjoy to do the most? What aspects of Rotary or the programs that Rotaries are involved in appeals to you and motivates you? Maybe you have a relationship or a partnership that could benefit Rotary. That can help you choose your scope. Who do you know that can help you with your contribution? How can you leverage their strengths or their interests? And finally, the time investment. This is often the most challenging aspect. How much time can you spend on your impact? How can you empower others to help? If you can't spend all that time, maybe you can help others to spend that. As a quick example from the Group Study Exchange, there were a lot of different scopes of involvement. It starts out with the club and the social meetings. Maybe we met people once at the club and that was it. Then it expands to the social events. Maybe the club members came to a social event and we got to mingle with them there. Then there were our host families. Maybe they're hosting us for a week. They're taking us around and driving us to the various events. And then you expand the scope even more. There's the cross-district coordinators, the people who are working with the district across the other side of the world to make sure that the agenda is set, that the timing is right, that everyone is aware of what needs to be done. All these various levels of involvement, all with different levels of scope. Those are the kinds of things that Rotary offers for you to be involved in. And each of those people that worked on that chose what scope they wanted to operate at based on these 4 criteria. One thing that I really want to focus on here is meaningfulness. What level of scope is most meaningful for you? For some of you, it might be creating strong friendships or making an impact on your fellow club members. It might be solving cool or interesting problems or using the skills that you have to do that, and only you can do that. For others, it might be finding a new project or bringing a new program into the club. But maybe that's not enough. Maybe you want to expand into something broader. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about. The scope that you choose should be something that brings you great joy whenever you think about contributing to it. Once you have a sense for the impact you want to make, it's always good to consider the challenges that you want to overcome. Each scope that you pick has a new level of challenges. Inspiration. Well, if you want to increase your scope, it can be really challenging, both personally and professionally. Hard work is fun, but only when it means something. So in order to grow, in order to succeed, you need to feel inspired. So you should focus on a goal and a scope that's meaningful to you. Resources is really challenging. Choosing a broader scope often requires additional resources. This could be people, time, money. All of these things are things that need to be considered as your scope increases. So focusing on a scope that you can align with your resources, or you can grow your resources, is really important. Otherwise, it's going to feel a lot harder than it should. Accountability is a challenge here. To increase your scope, you need broader accountability, for not only for yourself, but for all the others that you involve. This can a lot of times be the hardest challenge because it requires perseverance. Choosing a thinking impact first, you might choose to step into new areas. You'll need to persevere through these new areas and these challenges to grow and succeed. Incidentally, this is where mentors can really help, because people who have what you want and people who have been where you're at can lead you to that next level by guiding you through that. So thinking impact first in Rotary. What kind of impact do you want to have within Rotary? What's your goal? Who do you want to make an impact on? What kind of legacy will you leave? The legacy that the GSE team in 9820 left for me led me to being here today, as I mentioned. Pick a scope that works for you and just own it. Pick a scope and own it. Talk to the others in the club, talk to your president, talk to the district about that scope. Bring your passion, bring your interests, bring your perseverance, and help to build something amazing. That's what these folks did. They're a perfect example of how you'll never truly know the impact you'll have on someone or what that impact might lead to. So I encourage you to challenge yourself, challenge your club members, and work together to decide the scope of your impact. How can you grow together? Especially given how life has changed in the last 6 months, we really have a unique opportunity here to rethink what it means to have an impact on others. As an eClub especially, you're uniquely positioned to be an excellent example of how Rotary can increase its impact, not only through the challenges of remote meetings, but through leading the understanding of the technology and how to make this work in a format that's scalable, that other teams and other Rotary clubs can take advantage of. Thank you so much for your time and listening today. I'm really looking forward to all the impact that you all make from Emily as we discuss it over dinner. And I will be available for the rest of the meeting as well as afterwards. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to keep in touch. All of my information is there. And I will share these slides with everyone after the meetings if you want to go back through and just take a look at them.
Thank you so much, Johnny.
Thank you, everyone.
A silent applause. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask Johnny?
I really enjoyed his presentation. It was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What kind of activities, Johnny, do you do at Google?
So I wanted to include that, but my presentation ran a bit long, so I ended up cutting that out, but I can give you a quick high level. So you might be familiar with G Suite. Actually, hold on, I've got some slides for this really quick. Let me pull them up since you asked. Present my screen one more time. Some of you may be familiar with G Suite, which is Google's, it's like their Microsoft Office for their customers. Google Docs, Google Sheets, let's see, make that full screen. So Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive, you may have used that in the past. While it's free for consumer users, I'm a consumer user myself, there's also a paid version for businesses. And as you know, Google's a software company. So sometimes that software doesn't work right. If something goes wrong, if some problem affects our customers' G Suite data, it might be pictures, business documents, spreadsheets, anything really. Google as a company needs to be really, really careful and diligent in how we manage that problem. So we have to consider not only how to fix it, but also how to communicate it to our customers, make sure it never happens again, and make sure that the people who need to be informed both internally and externally are informed. And so that's actually where I come in. I work as a communications lead on an incident management team. So whenever there's a problem with G Suite software that affects the customer's data, we're the team that gets called in to help deal with that. What's cool is the decisions that we have or that we make as an incident management team they're high risk. They can cause irreparable damage to Google and cost us a lot of money in our brand or even our customer relationships. So my specific role during these incidents is to manage all the customer communications and to manage the internal communications as well. So I'm communicating with executives, which is awesome. At one point I was talking with the CEO of Google Cloud. It's just wild to be able to experience that. I don't lead just one incident at a time. At one point I was leading almost 8 different incidents in a week's span. It's a bit like working the lost baggage counter at the airport. You're never really having a good day, but it's really interesting. It's a really cool problem space, and it's awesome to be able to work with so many different teams. I work with engineering, product management, executives, the legal team, customer support teams, public relations to wrap up these incidents. So understanding all that and understanding what I need to do to grow at Google and thinking impact first, it's a lot to take in, but that's really why I wanted to share that with everyone today, because if I think about the impact that I'm making on the broader organization, it's not just about solving those incidents. It's about solving the incidents so that those incidents never happen again, or making it easier the next time it happens so that we can do things more effectively and more efficiently. Long-winded explanation, but that's the high level of what I do at Google, where we put out the fires.
Very good.
Any other questions or comments?
How big is Google?
Gosh, so I think it's somewhere around 100,000 or 130,000 full-time people. And then we also employ probably another 100,000 or more contractors. So ballpark 200,000+ people. The last company I worked at, the biggest company I worked at was 60 people before this. So you want to talk about a big jump in trying to understand the world. This completely blew my mind when it came to trying to figure out how to navigate at a company like this. It's wild.
So you're currently working remote, right? Is everybody at Google?
Yes. So Google was one of the earliest companies during the COVID situation back in March to announce work from home. And they've recently told us that we're going to be working from home until July of next year. There's pluses and minuses to that, but we're all adjusting to this new world. And fortunately, I've got a really cool whiteboard in the background, and I've got my keyboard right here. So I've got a nice work from home setup, and we should be okay. And I get to spend every day with my beautiful fiance, Emily, over in the room over there. So it's not that bad.
Have 2 separate rooms.
John, how are incidents rated?
Great question. So we have 2 rating scales for incidents. One is the severity, which typically how severe the impact of the incident is. This can be measured by how many customers it impacts, or if there's public awareness of the issue. And we also consider priority, so severity and priority. Priority incident changes depending on where it is during the incident life cycle, and the priority also changes depending on the nature of the incident. We actually use a system that some of you may be familiar with, Federal Emergency Management Agency, or ACT or something, FEMA, uses what they call an incident command model. It was developed in the 1970s to deal with wildfires, of course, here in California, and hurricanes. So Google has its own internal version of that incident management model that we call IMAG, or Incident Management at Google. And it's a specific protocol that we use to make sure that everyone who works at Google who might touch an incident knows how to handle an incident, so that the right people are informed. So that when an incident happens, they call in the incident management team, we go out and get everyone that needs to be involved, and then we drive it through to completion.
In addition to Microsoft, who are your competitors?
So I'm in Google Cloud, and so we're not focused on like the ads business or the search engine or anything like that. The primary competitors for Microsoft, or for Google in the cloud business, are Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and quite a few smaller companies that are competing for individual products. Microsoft and Amazon have wholesale enterprise suites that are available, whereas some smaller companies like Dropbox offer cloud storage. we have that at Google, but it's our own version of it. So there's a big, broad competition field. It's not something I think about too often because really I'm only focused on incidents, but those are some of our major competitors.
John, who determines that the incident is resolved?
Great question, Gerald. So, oh, go ahead.
I'm just wondering where does it stop in terms of it's done?
Yep. So as I mentioned, we have this IMAG, the incident management at Google, and it has a hierarchy of roles that it lists out. At the top of that hierarchy is the incident commander. Actually, in some of the fires that I've been seeing, the incident commander for the fire department will come on with the news and give updates and tell everyone what's going on. So for every incident that takes place, we manage it as its own project. And the incident commander is the leader of that project. So they're the one that's coordinating all of the teams and coordinating all the individuals to bring the incident to closure. They help define when that incident is considered in closure. My role is reporting to the incident commander. I'm the communications lead within an incident. So if, let's say, someone were to lose data and we needed to let them know, I would write that communication, get it reviewed, get it approved by the right people, deliver it to the customer, address any questions that they might have. Do you get to wear the white hats for incident commander? I'm not sure what that means. I do have my Google hat though. It's even got the little spinny on it.
Any fire, any place, the incident commander's wearing a white hat. That's just how they roll.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to tell that to my team. I didn't realize that. Here, I'll put it on for the rest of the call. We could probably do that as like a fun team thing to get everyone on the incident commander team some white hats.
Around about what we shouldn't share with Google. And doesn't sound like that's where you work. You don't work with ads or data or anything like that. But yeah, I guess the question is there anything we should watch out for?
Well, you should always be careful about where you're putting your information and what you're doing with your information. What's really surprising for me is coming into this, you can hear a lot of things about what people say about how Google handles data or doesn't handle data properly. And they say that about all cloud companies, really. It's just a very easy target to paint. I can't speak on behalf of Google. This is not me speaking behalf on Google. This is just me speaking my own opinion. I see how it is from the inside. We're working on incidents where, I can't talk specifically about what's going on, but where things like that can be of concern. We lose someone's data on accident or someone's used someone else's data on accident. That's what an incident is, a data security or a data trust incident. The way we handle it is very prescriptive. I think that's the right word. We're very deliberate about how we do this, especially protecting the customer's data, especially protecting the customer's information. This is not just me saying this as a company man. Like, I see how it is on the inside and they take it really seriously. Any change that we want to make as I'm trying to grow my influence and expand my scope, I keep hitting these roadblocks of you need to make sure that you're addressing customer privacy within your write-up before you even submit it to anyone, because they take it that seriously. There's a department called the Privacy Organization. It's a horizontal department that goes through all the verticals of Google, and you have to have sign-off from them on anything that you do if you're making something new, because you have to consider the customer's privacy first and foremost. That being said, I'm a customer of Google. I use Gmail, I have Google Drive and all that stuff. So I'm just as concerned about this stuff as everyone else is, right? It's my data and my text documents are on Google Drive and all that stuff. What I've learned since joining and seeing kind of how it goes on behind the scenes, it's actually reinforced my confidence that, you'll hear a lot of noise about what people do with data, but ultimately the whole idea of Google is to make the world better through understanding data. Right? The mission is to make the world's data universally accessible and useful. So if you want to make the world's data more accessible and more useful, you're going to need to get that data somehow. So it's really interesting to see from the inside that, like I said, it really reinforced my trust and my understanding of these companies. They're not out to get you. Like they're here to provide a service. And the service, while free, also gives them the opportunity to build better models and AI and machine learning models. Whereas, for paid customers, they have a concern about their AI models being read and the data being read. Well, if they don't want that being done, we don't do it. And that's the simple point. And if you're concerned about Google reading your data, then join a paid account, because they don't read the data from those paid accounts. It's just kind of interesting. But yeah, to answer your question broadly, it's really reinforced my trust in these organizations because I see how it is when things go wrong, and the way it's handled. I mean, that's my responsibility. So
That's comforting. Thanks.
Yeah, it's really surprising to me, but I'm glad it turned out that way because it would have been sad if it was the other way around. Well, I have taken a lot of your time. Your meeting might run over a little bit tonight, but I really appreciate the time that everyone spent with me. You have my contact information. I'll have Emily send out the slides so that you can get that from there as well. It's great seeing everyone, all the familiar faces that I know and love. Jan, thank you so much for coming. Nick, my mom and my dad are here. So thank you everyone for your time tonight. And if you have any questions, please feel free to just let me know. Nick,
Thanks
see
for
ya.
inviting us. Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, John.
I'll stick around for after the meeting in case anyone wants to talk some more.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Can I delete the email?
All right.